All right, well, welcome to today's edition of Post-Gazette Live at 5. I'm Paul Zeise, and of course, we will obviously be wrapping up the Steelers game against the Bengals and then looking ahead to the Steelers game just briefly against the Browns next week. It is important to note that the Steelers are 9-3, and if I looked at it correctly, and I might have or I might not have, I think if they win next week and a couple of other things happen, they could actually clinch a playoff berth. Although I'd have to look at that again, but it looks like they're inching closer and closer to a playoff berth. One or two more wins is probably going to do it, especially if some of these other teams lose. I mean, I think the Chargers right now, for instance, I know that they are technically, the fifth seed. If you look at what the Chargers have coming up in the next few weeks, there's a good chance they're going to lose a few games and everything else. And so I think that that's going to be the interesting thing about the Steelers, because that's the next frontier. Number one, clinch a playoff berth. Number two, then, of course, winning the AFC North and getting a home game for the playoffs, which they, desperately need or want or whatever you want to say. I will say from yesterday's game, we're going to start on the defensive side of the ball. And I know that, you're going to look at it and say, well, their defense didn't play very good. They're not elite. All of the other stuff that I've heard for the last 24 hours because they gave up 31 points. I know that the score was 38, but only 31 of them were on the defense. The first 7 was the pick 6 by the Bengals defense. So my point is the defense gave up 375 yards and 31 points. And so by most measures, you would say, well, the defense wasn't very good against the Bengals. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the defense was great. That's not what I'm going to tell you, okay? Because obviously they weren't great. But as I wrote about today in the Post-Gazette, they weren't great. That old John Facenda line, from NFL films back in the 70s and 80s, that old John Facenda line, they weren't great, but they were great when they needed to be. And when you play in a game like this that turns into a shootout where both offenses are feeling it, both offenses are going up and down the field, it feels like, the last team to get the ball is going to win. In those games, when it gets away from you a little bit as a defense, the team that's going to win is the team whose defense makes a few plays. It's not about, hey, listen, we're not probably going to stop them. And for the most part, they really didn't stop the Bengals. They forced, I think, a punt on the first series. And there was another series they might have forced a punt but again, even that second series where they forced a punt, it was because the referees gave them a gift. It was very clear it was a neutral zone infraction, but they called it, illegal procedure on the Bengals. It should have been a first down. That drive should have kept going. And really, that was significant. And I'll tell you why. Because if they get that first down, even if they don't, move it further than that, they're able to, kill some more of the clock in that half. And the Steelers might not have enough time to get that last field goal that they got right before the half. So that was significant. But the point I'm trying to make is they really didn't necessarily stop. They really didn't necessarily stop the Bengals for the most part. But what they did do was they got big plays from their big players when they needed it. And in these kind of shootout games, I mean, listen, you're playing against Joe Burrow, who, if you look at the numbers, has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this year. His numbers are fantastic. His numbers are really out of this world. I think, what does he have like now? 29, 30 touchdowns and like 5 interceptions. I mean, it isn't his fault that team stinks. But when you have him and he's playing well, and then you have him and he's playing well, and then he's got his 2 receivers who are really good. And you know what? They've got a couple other guys that are pretty good at catching the ball. It can be a really hard offense to deal with. And so while people are, want to jump down the Steelers' throats and basically want to attack the Steelers and say that the Steelers, defense, it wasn't an elite. It's not going to be able to hold up it's not going to be able to hold up in, playoff games or whatever. I would caution you when I would say this. Sometimes your defense just has to be good at the times it's needed to be good. And that was the case here with the Steelers yesterday. They got a big stop right before the half when they were playing. It was 21-21, and it looked like both teams were going up and down in the field, and neither team was ever going to get a stop. And last team with the ball was going to win and all that stuff. It was 21-21, and T.J. Watt, big player, makes first big play. T.J. Watt strip sack of Joe Burrow. And I think it was Payton Wilson maybe was the guy that, jumped on the ball. Now all of a sudden the Steelers get the ball, they go down, they kick a field goal. That was big play number one. Okay? That was a huge play in the game because, the Bengals were driving and it looked like they were just going to drive down the field and at least get a field goal, right, to go up 24-21, maybe get a touchdown to go up 28-21. And probably if he doesn't make that play, maybe the Steelers get one more opportunity to go down the field. If it stalls, maybe they're losing at halftime 28-24 as opposed to winning 27-21. So that was a huge play that was made by a big-time player. Period. Big-time player. T.J. Watt. Then in the second half, if you remember the start of the second half, Steelers came out and they got their field goal blocked. And now the Bengals have the ball. The Bengals go right down the field, get to the 11-yard line. Now it's 3rd and 6. And what happens? T.J. Watt sack. Big-time player makes big-time play. So now, all of a sudden, instead of it being 28-27 Bengals, it's 27-24 Steelers. Steelers go right down the field. And they get a touchdown. Now they're up 34-24. Bengals are a little bit desperate. Now the Bengals are trying to drive and at least get that back to within 3. And what happens? Cam Hayward tips a ball straight up in the air. Okay? Straight up in the air. And it's intercepted. And so anyway, that's what happens. And it's just one of those things where another big-time player made a big-time play, period. And I think that's one of those things where, hang on one second, I have to deal with a troll who's an idiot that can't spell. I always love these guys. They want to troll me. Right? And then if you're going to do that, at least learn how to spell. How about that? Anyway, long story short, I'm here saying that basically Cam Hayward understands and knows it's a big play is needed. He makes the big play. And I think that was another key part of the game. Another key part of the game. And I think that really when you look at it and you break down the Steelers defense, it's important to note that. It is important to understand that sometimes just being good at the right times is enough. And it's enough in so many ways that I don't think we fully appreciate. Because I think that really when you think about it, you expect the Steelers or whoever to be great all the time and to make every single play and to be able to, stop every team every time. It's not going to happen. All these other teams, they are all teams that basically have good players too. They're all teams that are going to be able to make plays from time to time. And really, you win and lose football games at those key times, those key moments when, okay, we need a play. Either they're going to make a play or we're going to make a play. And frankly, I mean, listen, the Bengals defense is horrific. They're terrible. And the biggest difference between them and the Steelers defense made a couple of plays. The Bengals defense did nothing the entire game. The Steelers defense, when it came down to it, we talked about TJ Watt strip sack. We talked about TJ Watt getting a sack at the 11-yard line there and forcing a field goal. We talked about Cam Hayward tipping a ball into Donte Jackson's hands for an interception and stopping a drive that way. And then, of course, the big one was Nick Herbig coming around the end, strip sack. Payton Wilson picks it up, runs it in for a touchdown to go up 41-24. That's really, to me, I think really how you define the game. So when I look at the Steelers defense on Sunday, I am actually not as down on their effort or whatever you want to say as some people are, because I think that the defense did what you would hope a defense would do that's got superstar players and they're up against a superstar quarterback and a great offense. And that is they're going to bend a little bit. They're going to give some plays up. And listen, I'll talk about a couple of things that they didn't do very well, but they're going to bend. They might even give up some plays. They're going to give up some points. But what they're going to do also is make some impact, game-changing plays to help the team win the game. That's always the difference in these shootouts, is the defense, which defense rises up and makes enough plays to win the game. And I think sometimes we forget that. We forget that shootouts are generally won by whatever defense makes a play or two. And I think that is what happened, the other day or Sunday. The Steelers defense, and particularly their big-time players for the most part, made plays when they needed the plays to be made. It's hard to win games in a shootout like that. If both quarterbacks are going crazy, it can be really difficult for defenses. But the defense that figures out how to have a game-changing play, one or two of them sometimes, and the Steelers in this case probably made 4 or 5. At the end of the day, that's the team that's going to win. And here's the thing. This team this year, because of their offense, they're equipped to win these kind of games. This is the kind of game they probably would have lost last year because, they would have probably not scored 41 points. Maybe they would have scored 24 or 28 because the Bengals defense is so bad, but they wouldn't have scored 41 points and they wouldn't have put up 500 yards of offense and everything else. This team is different because they're built to win a game like that. So if they get in the playoffs against one of these big name quarterbacks that's out there, right, and the guy gets hot, it doesn't mean they're going home, because two things. One, they can match them score for score. And two, they probably have the best star power on defense pretty much of any of these other teams. That's not to say that these other teams don't have really good defense. The Bills, the Chiefs, they both have really good defenses. The Ravens have a few stars on their defense. The Chargers' defense isn't terrible. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is star power, impact, game-changing players. The Steelers have as many on defense, if not more, than anyone they would play in the playoffs. And so if these games turn into shootouts, that's good, because generally a shootout is going to be decided by which defense rises up and make plays. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some issues. The Bengals got into the red zone 5 times, and I think they scored on 4 of those 5 times in the red zone. That's horrific. I mean, that's just bad. And at times it felt like the Steelers just had no answers for whatever they were doing in the red zone, or even once they got inside the 40 or 30 or 40-yard line. That was difficult. The other part of it is I thought that the Steelers really struggled in coverage. They just did. They got a bounce because of the tip pass by Cam Hayward to Donte Jackson. But for the most part, the Bengals receivers did almost what they wanted to do. Joey Porter Jr., I don't know how many, what's disappointing about Joey Porter Jr. to me is after a game like that, he says, hey, these penalties aren't going to cause me to change my game. I'm not going to do anything differently. Well, you better do something differently, because this is now at least the second or third game where you've got a bunch of penalties that really could have hurt your team. And, the penalties, I'd like to sit here and be like a Steeler, fan, some of them who don't think the Steelers ever commit penalties, but I didn't see a bad call against Joey Porter. I didn't. And I think that when you look at it from that standpoint, if I didn't see a bad call against him, it means that he needs to change what he does and how he does it. And he needs to change it a little bit. Maybe not a lot, but he needs to change it a little bit, because at the end of the day, he can't keep getting 3 and 4 or 5 penalties. I mean, the one play, he pulled off something I don't know that I've ever seen, which is he was guilty of the defensive hold and pass interference on the same exact play. And that was incredible to me. I mean, it just is one of those things where I think he's good in run support. He's a good tackler. He's a physical player, but he's got to stop grabbing people and using his hands and doing all the things he does, because he keeps getting penalties. And the penalties aren't helping the Steelers. They're actually hurting the Steelers big time. So I think that it's really important that he gets better at his technique or whatever it is that he needs to get better at, because if he doesn't, it's going to be a very, very, very difficult ride for him the rest of the way. Teams will start picking on him. Teams will start throwing deep against him, knowing that he's probably going to get a penalty once or twice, and you get all that yardage for pass interference. Teams will start picking on him if they think that he is not going to be able to help himself. So I hope that he's going to change what he does, because what he's doing right now is not working. I mean, beyond being a good tackler, which he is, and good in run support, I don't know that he's had even a good year. He's been a disappointment in many, many ways. And I just feel bad when you look at the way that he's playing. It's not the way that he's being taught to play. And I think what happened was last year and even into this year, referees started to really watch him and look at him. And then now he's got a reputation as a guy who grabs and holds. And I think that that's why he's getting these penalties. So that was something that obviously defensively needs to get better. There's no question. In coverage, I don't think they're great in coverage. Now, usually it doesn't matter, because they're outside guys, get home a lot, and, they put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, and they make quarterbacks move a lot. And so, you don't have to be nearly as good on the back end as maybe, some other teams. But I'll be honest with you, it's going to be something where if Joey Porter doesn't get better, then I think that, it could be a situation where we're sitting here watching a playoff game and it actually cost them. And so that's what they need to do. They need to make sure that he continues to get better with his technique, less hands, all that other stuff. But, if you ask me, some of the young guys they have on this defense, I mean, Payton Wilson is a stud. He's unbelievably good. I actually, to the point where I kind of like him more than, Patrick Queen. And frankly, I kind of like him a little bit more even as an all-around guy than Landon Roberts. Nick Herbig's not a rookie, but he's young and he's still developing. I think he's really good. At least at what he does, which is rush the passer, which is a very important skill. If you're a guy that can play on the outside like that and rush the passer and get home, that's a very, very important skill. So they've got some good things. I mean, Cam Hayward yesterday looked like he was 25, not 35 or 36 or whatever he is. He looked young, healthy. He was running well. He made, big plays. I mean, the one play in the backfield down around the goal line, it looked like he almost killed the guy. Where he bust through the line and hit the guy for, stopped him like for a 2-yard loss or whatever. I mean, Cam Hayward looks like he's playing the way you need him to play. TJ Watt, we just talked about. He only made 2 or 3 plays the entire game, but they were all big, high impact plays. I mean, he changed the game with a number of the plays that he made. So I think when you look at the whole entire picture of the defense, okay, I know it's easy to say, well, they gave up 375 yards. They gave up 31 points. Joe Burrow threw for a bunch of yards and, touchdowns and all the other stuff. So they didn't play well. Well, I don't know that they played great, but they played really, really well at the key times they needed to play really, really well. And that's the difference. Honestly, in these shootouts, that is the difference. Your defense makes enough plays to stop the other team, give your team the ball back, because, again, it's a shootout. We're both going up and down the field. So if we stop them once or twice, we have a chance to take a lead. And that's what the Steelers did. They went from up 27-24 to up 41-24. And at that point, then the Bengals made a late surge, and you knew they would. But guess what? They ran out of time because the Steelers had a big enough cushion at 17 points that, okay, they gave up a couple of touchdowns. They still needed one. They get the ball back one more time to have a chance to win. So to me, the defense, I don't know that I would call what they did yesterday great, but they were great when they needed to be great. You know, that old John Facenda line from NFL Films. They were great when they needed to be. Now, offensively, this is the best offense that the Steelers have had since before Ben Roethlisberger's injury. So what year was he hurt? Was it 19 or 20 or whatever year he was hurt? Like where he was basically the year we had Duck and Mason Rudolph. Prior to that, the Steelers with the Killer Bees and whatnot, they had a couple of years where they had really, really good offenses that could score and could win games, because they could outscore teams and stuff. But since Ben Roethlisberger's shoulder injury, this has been a disaster, a terrible offense until now. And listen, I think it's very, very clear. Anybody that was still holding out and still not sure about Russell Wilson, because, again, we heard a lot of nasty things, okay? A lot of nasty things coming out of Denver from some of his teammates, from some of the broadcasters out there, from some of the national broadcasters, from some of the people who basically said he was done, he was a bad teammate, he was aloof, he didn't care about playing anymore, he didn't care about winning anymore. All of that stuff we heard from Denver. There are a lot of people that were really, really skeptical about Russell Wilson. And to me, I was sort of indifferent. Like, okay, if we get Seattle Russell Wilson, then it's a great addition for the Steelers. If they get, Denver Russell Wilson, then I don't know that they're much better off than they were last year with Mason Rudolph. And then when Justin Fields played and he was 4-2, my thing was, well, you're going to replace Justin Fields, but did he really do anything wrong? It's very clear that Russell Wilson is the best quarterback on this roster and the best quarterback since pre-shoulder injury Ben that this team has had. And as a result, this is the best offense this team has had. This is not a team now like they were the last few years where they needed everything to go right for them, where they needed everything to be perfect for them, where they had no margin for error, where they had to hold the other team down to like 10 or 13 points so they could pull out a game 16-13 or whatever. That ain't this team anymore. Again, they're equipped to win a shootout because Russell Wilson is an elite quarterback right now. He looks like the guy that was in Seattle. I mean, you tell me, but I see a guy who throws a really pretty pass, who has all the passes, who really understands how to read defenses, who really understands how to attack defenses, who understands how to change plays at the line, who understands what he's looking at and then can either check down or, you know what? They're going to come at me, but I have enough time that I should be able to get the ball down the field like to Van Jefferson on that one play down the sidelines. That is exactly to me what makes him different. Some of the throws he makes, listen, I've seen now, what has he started now? 5 games maybe? Something like that? I have actually seen probably in 5 games 15 to 17 passes that Justin Fields could not make, period, if not more. Russell Wilson is clearly the best quarterback on this team. And here's the thing, the way he's playing right now, I mean, obviously Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, but the way he's playing right now, I know this is going to be a very controversial thing to say because he's won a couple MVPs. I'd rather have Russell Wilson the way he's playing right now than Lamar Jackson, because the way that Russell Wilson is playing right now, I think he's right there at the top among the best quarterbacks in the league again. That's where he belongs, actually. That's where he should be, actually. And nobody was sure what he was capable of when he came in because, again, we heard all these horror stories from Denver, and, of course, the Denver offense wasn't very good and, all of that stuff. And then he was benched for money or whatever the story was last year. So there was a lot of people just didn't know about Russell Wilson. But here's the thing. Burrow, Mahomes, Josh Allen. Okay, those are the three best quarterbacks probably in the AFC, maybe in the NFL, but definitely in the AFC. Those are probably the three best quarterbacks. Russell Wilson is fourth, and he ain't that far behind those guys. So to me, I take him over Herbert. I take him over Lamar Jackson. I would. He throws the ball, and he's made some throws that are like, there's maybe 4 or 5 guys in the NFL that can make that throw. And so it's been fun to watch because for so long we've had to watch these painful, ugly Steeler games where they basically are, trying to win 10-7 or 10-6. They need every single thing to go right for them. They need basically to, their defense to, play out of their minds to keep the other team from scoring so they can come back and score at the end of the game. And, there'd be punt. It's so much more fun to watch the Steelers this year than it has been in so many years because of Russell Wilson, because of the offense, because of the fact that they can move the ball in many, many ways. And I think that's the thing about it. It really is important to understand that is just going to be, this is a good offense, but it has a chance to even get better. And here's the thing. I like the offensive line, the way it's developed. Listen, Broderick Jones yesterday, we didn't call his name, I don't think at all, which is a good thing because it means he did his job. Dan Moore has been a guy who probably has been one of the most underrated players on this team. Everybody wanted to replace him the last 2 years. I think he's turned into a pretty good player for them. And I think that's the thing about it that is really, really important. I just feel like it is a team that is coming together, and for the first time in a couple of years, I think this team could make a legitimate run in the playoffs. Like last year, for instance, I'll give you a great example. I knew they had no chance of beating Buffalo because the bottom line was they were not going to be able to score enough points to win the game. Mason Rudolph made their offense a little bit better, but it still was bad. And so I feel like that's the key to me is if you look at it from that standpoint and you look at it from the way that we are looking at it now, you look at the Steelers and you tell me who they can't beat. And I don't know that there's a list of teams, to be honest. Now, if they have to play at Buffalo, yeah, the Bills would be favored, but that don't mean the Steelers couldn't win there. I think if they have to play Kansas City, that'll be tough. But unlike a few years ago, they could win there. The Bills, the Chiefs have, Patrick Mahomes, and that's obviously a big, big advantage. But again, the Steelers have Russell Wilson, who's playing as well as any of the guys that you could mention. And in the NFC, who are the best quarterbacks in the NFC? Jalen Hurts is one, right? Jared Goff is one. There's a few guys in the NFC, but if you look at the best quarterbacks, they're almost all in the AFC. Russell Wilson is no worse than fourth. You want to tell me Burrow's better? Yeah, he's pretty good. In fact, it's kind of ridiculous how bad his team is when you look at his numbers. He's really good. Mahomes is Mahomes, and obviously he's the GOAT. And listen, Josh Allen does things that nobody else can do. He's just a freak of nature. That's it. That's the list. Again, I'd rather have him than Lamar Jackson. I'd rather have Russell Wilson than Lamar Jackson 10 days out of 10. I just think that Lamar Jackson is a great player. He's a great talent. I get it. He's an MVP caliber player. He's a guy that's a difference maker. He's dynamic. He's all of that good stuff that we always talk about. I get it. But guess what? If you're going to win in the NFL playoffs, you better be able to make big-time throws under pressure consistently. And Lamar Jackson just doesn't. He throws for a lot of yards, If you watch what they do, a lot of their throws are just down the field, big-time throws or whatever, long. And a lot of that is because they have to spend so much time and energy up. The defenses have to really stay, pack the box or whatever you want to say in order to contain his running. And so they get one-on-one matchups down the sidelines and things of the such. But to me, if he is asked to stand in there and dink and dunk down the field like Russell Wilson can do, I don't think Lamar Jackson could do that consistently. So that's why I say I would take Russell Wilson over Lamar Jackson, and I would probably do it 10 days out of 10. And I think that the offense now, if you think about it, Van Jefferson is finding a role. He's getting a little bit better. Calvin Austin is finding a role and getting a little bit better. They're figuring out how to use Pat Freiermuth more and more each week. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren have been running really hard. Mason McCormick and Zach Frazier, two rookies, have been really, really good on the offensive line. Ciamalo is Ciamalo. I mean, it's all coming together for this team. It really is. They are basically at a place where they are capable of winning games in a number of different ways. And so, to me, that's why I said don't overreact to the Browns game. Was it last week? Don't overreact to the Browns game. And listen to me. I get it. I understand that the Bengals defense is horrific. I think Joe Starkey in today's paper described them perfectly, right? They look slow, unorganized, not physical, not tough, no real plan, not very well coached, not very good talent. Yeah, they're horrible. And a good offense should do to a horrible team like that? Put up 41 points. Last year, Kenny Pickett and then Mason Rudolph played against the Bengals. And, I think Pickett and Rudolph put up a bunch of yards. But if I'm not mistaken, Pickett, they scored, 16 points or 19 points against the Bengals or something like that. And then, with Mason Rudolph, it was a little bit more than that. But the reality is it wasn't 41. It wasn't just continue, go, 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 go. That's what we saw yesterday. That's what great offenses do to bad defenses. So I just don't want to put too much emphasis on the idea that, this game means that the Steelers have arrived because, again, just like you don't want to overreact to the loss to the Browns, to be honest, you don't want to overreact to a win against the Bengals where the offense looked really good, other than it's just going to be important. Really. It really is. It's just going to be important, really, if you think about it, for them to be good. Here we go. I love this. Here we go. Yeah, Dwayne. Dwayne says, I love how his opinion has changed a few weeks ago when they had Justin Fields playing quarterback. You're right, Dwayne. I did not think they could win a playoff game. Dwayne, with him as your quarterback, with Justin Fields. I didn't think they could win a playoff game playing that way. Now they actually have a quarterback who we've seen play for 5 or 6 weeks. You know that he's really good, that he's as good as he was in Seattle, that he can throw the ball the way that he wants to throw the ball, that the way that elite quarterbacks throw the ball. Yeah, you think something has changed, Dwayne? That's what's changed, Dwayne. Do you understand that? 6-7 weeks ago, they had a running quarterback who can't throw. Now they've got a guy who's as good as any other quarterback. So, yeah, my opinion has changed. Isn't it amazing, Dwayne, how that works, right? I don't do narratives like some people do in this world. I don't do narratives. If the facts change, then my opinion changes. You understand that now, Dwayne? I'm so tired of this nonsense that people think, 6 or 7 weeks ago it was a different team, Dwayne. You understand that? It was a completely different team. The other part of it, 6 or 7 weeks ago, the offensive line was bad because these young guys hadn't gotten experience and basically hadn't played, and they had injuries. And then he follows that up with his nonsense here. Oh, yeah, so where's it at here? Oh, yeah, you think Lamar quarterback play won't work in the playoffs. Silly talk, really? Because he's had so much success in the playoffs, hasn't he? I mean, at the end of the day, the bottom line with Lamar Jackson to me is he's exactly like that Ravens team. And that Ravens team thinks they're the smartest team on the planet, but they're the dumbest team on the planet. And Lamar Jackson is always good for making a really big mistake, fumble, something like that. He's always good for that. And I'm not saying he's not a great player. He is. He's a dynamic player. He's a great player. But at the end of the day, If you're asking me in the playoffs, who would I rather have, Russell Wilson or Lamar Jackson? I take Russell Wilson because, let's not forget, Russell Wilson did play in 2 Super Bowls and won one of them. So there is an idea or a precedent for him to be a guy who actually wins playoff games. And the bottom line is you win playoff games if your quarterback can make tough throws under pressure on time consistently. That gives you a chance to win playoff games. And if he can't, and if he's just a guy that runs around and, throws the ball deep downfield, well, guess what? You're not playing bad offenses there. You're not playing bad defenses primarily in the playoffs. So you better be able to figure out another way to beat them. So, give me a break with this, will you please? Lamar Jackson is a great player. Great, great player. He's a dynamic player. Might be the most dynamic player in the league. I'd rather have Josh Allen, but yeah, Lamar Jackson is great too. But when it comes to playing the position of quarterback, there is no question. You'd rather have Burrow. You'd rather have Russell Wilson. You'd rather have Mahomes. You'd rather have even Josh Allen, who has learned how to, over the course of time, be less of a runner and more of a passer. That's just my opinion. But give me a break with this thing. Oh, well, 6, 7 weeks ago, you were talking about how the Steelers couldn't win a playoff game. Yeah, because they had a running quarterback that can't throw and an offensive line that was a mess. So, yeah, the facts changed. Therefore, my opinion has changed. That's how it works. That's what we do. And it's just one of these things where, you know what? There's a lot of people that go with narratives and they stick with the narrative and they stick their heels in the ground, and that's the only thing that they want to say. I don't ever do that. Never did it never did it ever. I look at the facts and I analyze the facts, and the facts are that Russell Wilson has changed this team, completely changed this team, because it's given the Steelers a passing game that is as complete and dangerous as just about any other passing game in the league. That's the reality of the situation. And I think that it's amazing, but when you look at Russell Wilson throw the ball, all of a sudden Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin look like they might be good enough. When Justin Fields was the quarterback, they weren't good enough. So my point is, things change. When you have a quarterback that brings it all together, it changes your entire team. It changes the outlook for your team. Period. And that's just the reality. So, in a couple of weeks when the Steelers play the Ravens, I guarantee you Russell Wilson will throw for a lot of yards against the Ravens defense. And Lamar Jackson will probably do what he does against the Steelers defense, which is they bottle him up and force him to be a pocket passer, and he's not going to beat him that way. So, yes, I would rather have Russell Wilson than Lamar Jackson. That doesn't make me a homer. That doesn't make me a yinzer. That doesn't make me stuck in some old time, theories on football. It just makes me somebody who deals in reality. Period. Reality. And the reality is the Steelers have one of the best quarterbacks in the AFC. I wouldn't have said that 6 or 7 weeks ago. I just believe that. 6 or 7 weeks ago, when I looked at the Steelers, I saw a team with an offensive line that was beat up. I saw a team with a receiving core that wasn't good enough. Probably had something to do with the quarterback. I saw a quarterback who was a runner that couldn't throw. And I saw a 35 or 36-year-old quarterback trying to get healthy with a calf injury with no guarantee that he was going to get healthy enough to actually play, much less play at this level. And what it turns out is, and it's very simple to me, it turns out that that Mike Tomlin was smart to hold Russell Wilson out even another week or two longer than maybe he even needed to make sure that he was 100% healthy. And that's the reality. But there's nobody out there that could have known that Russell Wilson was going to be this good this year. Nobody. There were people who probably thought, yeah, I think if he regains some of his form from Seattle, he has a chance to be that good. But I can't believe that there are people that looked at what he did in Denver the last couple of years and said, yeah, this is a guy, this is what he's going to be. I just don't believe that. So to me, now that we've seen Russell Wilson and we've seen how he plays, yeah, my opinion has definitely changed when it comes to the Steelers from a few weeks ago. The game is always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson Street in the South Side. 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday. Home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. All the games on Sundays, all the games on Saturdays. Archie's is a great place to be. Get down there. Tell them Paul Zeise sent you when you did. Tomorrow we'll do it again at 5. We'll talk about the Steelers. We'll talk about some college football tomorrow. We'll do it all again and everything else. And then hopefully we'll start to talk about the Browns game as well. Until then, have a good day, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.